investigators of Valley Homes searched in connection to the Tupac Shakur murder investigation nearly 27 years after his death.
Metro Police confirming they searched a home as part of their ongoing work to solve who killed the rapper and hip-hop icon.
The ground has finally started to speak. 28 years of silence, secrets buried just out of sight, and now the truth claws its way into the light. Near Tupac's old home, cops have uncovered something bad, something that whispers of fear and unfinished stories. Letters, journals, recordings, and electronics show a life stuck in disarray, now found. Was it hidden to protect or to deceive? And just when you think the story is told, the most shocking secret is yet to be revealed, waiting, buried, daring us to uncover it. The night everything changed in September 1996. September the 7th, 1996 was electric in Las Vegas. The city was alive with lights, music, and an energy that could be felt on every street corner. Tupac Shakur, only 25 years old, was there with Suge Knight, the powerful and often feared founder of Death Row Records. They had just watched Mike Tyson knock out Bruce Seldon at the MGM Grand, and the excitement of the fight still pulsed through the crowd. But underneath the celebration, a storm was quietly forming, one that would change everything forever. The first spark came inside the MGM lobby.
Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight found themselves ringside at the Mike Tyson-Bruce Seldon championship fight.
Tupac and his entourage ran into Orlando Anderson, a member of the Southside Crips from Compton. Words were exchanged, and tensions boiled over quickly. Fists flew. Security stepped in, but the anger didn't fade. That confrontation would echo far beyond the walls of the hotel. It was a small clash, but it set the stage for something far darker. That same night, at around 11:15 at night, Tupac was in the front seat of Suge Knight's black BMW 750IL. They drove down East Flamingo Road, near Koval Lane, a seemingly ordinary stretch of pavement. But this night was anything but ordinary. A white Cadillac pulled up alongside them. Suddenly, gunfire erupted. Fast, relentless, precise. Tupac was struck 4 times, twice in the chest, once in the arm, and once in the thigh. One bullet pierced his right lung. Suge Knight was grazed in the head, but survived. Seconds of chaos would leave a lifetime of questions. Paramedics rushed Tupac to University Medical Center, where surgeons worked desperately to save him. His right lung was removed, but the internal damage was catastrophic. For 6 long days, Tupac fought for his life. On September the 13th, 1996, at 4:03 in the afternoon, he succumbed to respiratory failure and cardiac arrest.
Rap star Tupac Shakur died last night after a brief life in a rough business. He was 25.
His mother, Afeni Shakur, faced the heart-wrenching decision to let her son go. The city and the world were stunned. A legend was gone, and the ground seemed to shake with grief. The investigation didn't bring answers. No arrests were made immediately, and the case went cold. Theories swirled like smoke in the night. Some said the shooting was retaliation for the MGM fight. Others pointed to the notorious East Coast-West Coast rivalry, which had fueled conflicts across the hip-hop world. Whispers suggested involvement of bigger names, secret alliances, and hidden motives. Each new theory deepened the mystery instead of clarifying it. Keith D., also known as Dwayne Keith Davis, a Southside Crips associate, later claimed in interviews that his nephew, Orlando Anderson, was involved, but Orlando died in 1998, leaving more questions than answers. Who pulled the trigger? Why was Tupac targeted that night? And why did the case remain unsolved for decades, leaving millions of fans desperate for the truth? While the world mourned, someone close to the events moved quietly, hiding pieces of the story that no one was ready to see. Journals, letters, recordings, and documents were tucked away, preserved in secrecy. The night of September 7 wasn't just the night Tupac was shot, it was the moment a hidden story began, one that would remain buried for nearly 3 decades. From cold case to recent breakthroughs. For decades, Tupac's murder felt like one of those mysteries the world might never solve. Leads went cold. Witnesses stayed silent. The East Coast-West Coast feud had already claimed another legend when the notorious B.I.G. was killed in Los Angeles just 6 months later.
The music world is numb today, stunned by the violent death of gangster rapper notorious B.I.G.
In March 1997, the streets, the music, the culture, all of it seemed locked in grief and unanswered questions. Early investigations focused on Orlando Anderson, the young man Tupac had fought in the MGM lobby that night. Police looked at him closely, but he denied any involvement. Then, tragedy struck again. Orlando was killed in a gang shooting in Compton in 1998. With him gone, the case stalled. Clues dried up and years of silence followed, leaving Tupac's fans and family grasping for answers that never came. The story might have stayed frozen in time, if not for renewed interest in the late 2010s and early 2020s. Documentaries, podcasts, and books reignited curiosity about the case. One name started to rise above the others: Dwayne Keith Davis, better known as Keith D, the uncle of Orlando Anderson and a longtime Southside Crips associate. Keith D spoke publicly in interviews, and in his 2019 memoir, Compton Street Legend, he painted a vivid picture of that fateful night. According to him, he was in the white Cadillac that pulled up to Tupac's car. He described the tension, the shots fired, and the chaos that followed. Keith D claimed his nephew, Orlando Anderson, was involved, and he framed the shooting as retaliation for the MGM fight. Importantly, he denied pulling the trigger himself, but the world now had a first-hand account, a perspective that hadn't existed before in the public eye. For years, these revelations lived in books, online clips, and fan discussions. But then, in 2023, something real happened. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department began taking action. Investigators executed search warrants tied to the decades-old case. While details were sparse at first, it was clear the long, cold investigation had entered a new chapter. By 2024, the search turned toward Keith D's home in Henderson, Nevada, about 50 miles southeast of the Las Vegas Strip, and not far from neighborhoods tied to Tupac's circle back in 1996. Bodycam footage would later show officers carefully clearing the residence. Every room, every drawer, every corner was methodically searched. Electronics were seized, pages from memoirs and handwritten journals were collected. Even bullet casings were taken for analysis. For the first time in decades, police action was tangible, visible, and real. The search alone sent ripples through the fan community. People began asking questions. Was this just a routine follow-up? Or had law enforcement stumbled onto something far deeper, something that had remained hidden for nearly 28 years? Some fans whispered about buried secrets, documents, recordings, even objects that might reveal truths the world had never seen. Others speculated about connections to the music industry, East Coast-West Coast rivalries, or long-hidden disputes between those closest to Tupac. No one could say for sure, but the tension was palpable. Henderson wasn't just a random location. Its proximity to areas tied to Tupac's life in Las Vegas made it a focal point for investigators and theorists alike. Every item seized, the electronics, the journals, the bullet casings, could tell a story. Every page read, every file examined might answer questions that had haunted fans and family for decades. It was as if the case, dormant for so long, had finally begun to breathe again. And yet, even as evidence was collected, the biggest mysteries remained. What had really happened that night? How much did Keith D know? Were there other secrets still buried, waiting for the right moment to emerge? Fans and investigators alike were left on edge, hanging on the possibility that the long road to justice might finally reach a turning point. For years, Tupac's murder was a puzzle missing its key pieces. The 2024 search in Henderson showed that some of those pieces might now be within reach, but whether they reveal answers or only deeper mysteries remains to be seen. One thing is certain: after decades of silence, the shadows around Tupac's final night are stirring, and the world is watching, waiting for the next revelation. What the cops actually found. On July 17, 2023, detectives stepped onto the quiet streets of Henderson, Nevada, moving toward a house tied to one of the last people close to Tupac's 1996 shooting. This was Keith D's residence, the uncle of Orlando Anderson, a man long connected to the events of that fateful night. Body cam footage released later showed officers walking through the home with purpose, checking every room, every drawer, every corner. Their mission: to seize anything concerning the murder of Tupac Shakur. The items recovered were real, documented, and startling in their own way. Multiple computers, laptops, tablets, and even a single cell phone were collected. Hard drives and electronic storage devices were carefully bagged. Among the more unusual items was a Pokeball USB drive. Bullet casings were also taken. 40 caliber rounds matched the weapon used in the shooting. Officers even retrieved 2 large black tubs filled with photographs dating back to the 1990s, some showing people possibly linked to Tupac's circle or the events of that night. There were also magazines, including a copy of Vibe featuring Tupac and Keefe D's memoir, Compton Street Legend. Investigators even recovered purported substance and various documents. Every item told a story, or at least hinted at one. Every object seemed heavy with meaning. Fans watching the released footage noticed the care officers took. Nothing was rushed, nothing ignored. The sense of history, of decades of hidden evidence, weighed on every frame. Then came the layer-by-layer revelations, the kind of detail that fuels both investigators and fan speculation. First, the electronics. Computers, hard drives, and tablets could hold messages, recordings, or files from years ago. Every device was a potential time capsule, a way to hear the past in voices, documents, or videos that had remained unseen for nearly 3 decades. The fans immediately speculated. Could there be recordings from Tupac himself, or conversations revealing fear, tension, or plans long buried? Next, the writings. Keefe D's memoir, pages recovered from journals, and handwritten notes painted an urgent picture. Some notes reportedly expressed worry about surveillance, pressure from rivals, or being targeted. Even if these documents were never intended for the public, they offer a window into the mindset of someone entwined in the events surrounding Tupac's final months. Words on a page suddenly feel like whispers from the past. Then came the money trail. Speculative reports and fan discussions hinted at financial documents showing offshore transactions, multiple passports under aliases, and even emergency cash stashed away. These items suggest planning, preparation, and a careful effort to keep certain things hidden. Fans and armchair detectives immediately began connecting dots. Why were these items kept close? Were they insurance, evidence, or both? Could they hint at deeper truths about what happened that night? And finally, the creative spark. Early ideas for an independent label called something like Machiavelli Records. While purely speculative, it ties into Tupac's legacy and the ambition of those surrounding him. It gives the impression of a life carefully managed, with plans, projects, and potential that extended beyond the chaos of that fateful night. Each layer, electronics, writings, money, creative ideas, reveals something new, a different angle on nearly 28 years of hidden history. The fans watching this unfold online were captivated. Every photograph, every seized document, every piece of technology became a story waiting to be told. The bullet casings reminded them of the shooting itself, still unresolved in so many ways. The journals and memoir pages whispered secrets of fear, strategy, and survival. And the financial documents and passports hinted at a world of movement and planning beyond what anyone could see. The impact of the search wasn't that it solved the murder overnight. The case remains complex, tangled in decades of mystery. But the discovery showed one critical thing. After 28 years of silence, the story is still alive. The case is still breathing. And for the first time in nearly 3 decades, the world could begin to piece together a picture of the hidden side of Tupac's final months, layer by layer, object by object, whisper by whisper. The darker questions. This raises, when you look at what came out of that Henderson home, a few things hit harder than others. The 40 caliber bullet casings are the same type used in the shooting that killed Tupac. The tubs of old photographs could show faces connected to the streets, parties, or the circles around death row and the crypts in the mid-90s. The electronics, the writings, even the financial documents all suggest someone was still thinking about, documenting, or planning around the events of that night, decades later. It's impossible to ignore the human cost. Tupac was just 25 when he was killed, His music, his voice, and his energy were cut short, but these items hint that those closest to the events didn't escape unscathed. Fans, retired detectives, and observers have asked questions without jumping to conclusions. Could the journals and cassette recordings mean that Tupac himself sensed danger? Could he have been making contingency plans, thinking about survival or escape? Or do these items point to bigger forces, inside jobs, rivalries, or even names that still echo in the music industry today, like Diddy? No one can know for sure, but the items from the Henderson search make it clear. There was fear, there was planning, and there were choices made about money and movement. Afeni Shakur, Tupac's mother, fought for years to reclaim royalties from death row, where Suge Knight controlled Tupac's estate. Despite Tupac's massive earnings, early records showed debt, mismanagement, or perhaps deliberate withholding. The legal battles, the financial documents, and the offshore movements all point to a side of Tupac's world that was far from glamorous. It was dangerous, tense, and deeply bad for everyone involved. Keith D has maintained his version of events. He claims innocence regarding direct involvement in the shooting. His legal team argued over how the search was conducted, including the nighttime execution of the warrant, suggesting the process itself may have violated certain rules. Still, the case moved forward. In September 2023, Keith D was arrested and charged in connection with the murder.
Police arrested Dwayne Keith Davis. He's the known gang member taken into custody last week for the shooting death of rapper Tupac Shakur.
As of early 2026, legal proceedings are ongoing, and motions to suppress evidence are still being debated. But the legal drama isn't the only reason this feels unsettling. The discovery reminds us that fear doesn't vanish. People who were there, who saw or heard things, or who were tied to Tupac's world, had to live with constant pressure. They kept certain materials for decades, long after Tupac's death. Was it insurance? Evidence? A quiet warning? Fans and investigators alike wonder why some items were never discarded, why some recordings, notes, and documents survived intact. Every detail whispers of tension and human cost. The money is another layer of this darkness. Offshore accounts, cash, and financial maneuvers meant to hide resources or plan for the future show a side of the industry that is ruthless. The same world that made Tupac a star also created a system where wealth, loyalty, and survival were constantly at odds. It's not just about fame or music, it's about navigating danger, keeping secrets, and managing threats that could be deadly. Ultimately, what makes this discovery so bad isn't just the items themselves. It's the reminder of fear, unfinished business, and lost potential. Tupac's life ended too soon, but these items showed that the pain and pressure didn't end with him. Someone was still living with consequences, still documenting fears, still moving money, still watching and planning decades after the shooting. And for the fans, the world, and his family, the bigger questions remain. Who really pulled the trigger? Were there people behind the scenes guiding events? And what else is hidden, waiting to be uncovered? The Henderson search may have answered part of the story, but it also proves one thing. 28 years later, Tupac's world still whispers secrets, and those secrets are still dangerous, still dark, and still unresolved. Now, in 2026, the world is looking back with fresh eyes. The Henderson search results have been public for over a year, and the case is still active. Fans everywhere are reflecting in ways they never did before. Tupac's music continues to echo through streets, headphones, and concert halls. His words, his beats, his voice remain as powerful and relevant today as they were in the 1990s. His family, especially his mother Afeni, fought for years to protect his legacy and his estate. And even though Afeni has passed, the fight for understanding and justice carries on. Even as the legal process continues, motions to suppress evidence, court proceedings, and ongoing investigations, the larger truth is already clear. Tupac's story still matters. His life, death, and legacy still demand attention. Fans, family, and even casual observers feel it. The ground near Tupac's world held its secrets tight, but now it's speaking. And what it's saying feels heavier than anyone expected. This discovery may not answer all questions, and it may never fully close the book on his death, but it does something almost as powerful. It reminds us that Tupac's legacy isn't just in the music he left behind. It's in the mysteries, the whispers, and the pursuit of justice that continues. Every journal page, every photo, every digital file recovered in Henderson is a piece of a puzzle that decades of silence couldn't erase. For fans, this is more than curiosity. It's a reflection. It's thinking about a young man taken too soon, about the fear and pressure surrounding him, and about the ways his life was intertwined with danger, ambition, and industry power. And as the evidence continues to unfold, one thing is undeniable. Tupac's story is far from over. The ground may have held its secrets for nearly 3 decades, but now, slowly, it's revealing them, and the world is listening, waiting, and watching as the legend's truth edges closer to light. The ground has finally begun to speak, and the secrets near Tupac's world are heavier than anyone imagined. What will these revelations mean for his legacy? Stay tuned, share your thoughts, and don't miss a moment. Hit like and subscribe to follow every twist in this story.